My mother didn't even say hello when she called. She just said, "Abigail, we need to talk about tonight." I was standing in front of a 400-degree oven, sweat dripping down my back flour, coating my eyelashes like snow. It was 4 in the afternoon on a Friday, the busiest hour at the Gilded Crumb, and my mother was calling to tell me I wasn't welcome at my own sister's engagement dinner. She said, "Haley wants everything to be perfect tonight. Aesthetic, you know. And, well, you always have that smell on you. That yeast smell. And your hands are always stained. You look like a peasant Abigail. It just doesn't fit the old Boston vibe she's curating." I stood there gripping a tray of blistering hot sourdough, and I felt my chest go cold. I didn't argue. I didn't beg. I just whispered okay. And I hung up. Before I tell you exactly how I made them regret that call, drop a comment and let me know. What time is it where you are right now? I always wonder who's awake with me. I stood there for a long time after the screen went dark, just listening to the hum of the convection ovens. People think baking is romantic. They see the slow-motion videos of dusting sugar and rising dough on social media and they think it's soft. It isn't soft. It's burns on your forearms that look like maps of countries that don't exist. It's waking up at 3 in the morning when the rest of the world is still dreaming just to make sure the croissants have enough layers. It's cracked skin and aching shoulders and a level of physical exhaustion that settles into your bones and never really leaves. My sister Haley didn't know about that kind of tired. Haley was 26, a lifestyle influencer who made a living unboxing luxury handbags and filming her skincare routine in perfect natural light. My parents called her the golden child. They beamed when she showed them her engagement ring, a 3-carat oval diamond that cost more than my entire culinary school education. They bragged about her to their friends at the country club. But what they didn't mention, what they never talked about, was who actually paid for that lifestyle. For 5 years, I had been the invisible wallet of the family. When my father Brian made bad investments and lost a chunk of his portfolio, I was the one who transferred $5,000 a month to keep the brownstone heated. When Haley needed a new camera for her vlog because the old one wasn't crisp enough, I wrote the check. I told myself I was supporting her dreams. I told myself that because I was the one in the back of the house, the one covered in flour and sweat, it was my job to make sure they could shine in the front of the house. But that afternoon, leaning against the stainless steel counter, I realized something that hit me harder than the heat from the ovens. It's a concept sociologists call the service paradox. My family loved the product, but they despised the producer. They loved the luxury of the pastries I made. They loved the money my bakery brought in. They loved the status of eating artisan bread. But they looked at the labor required to make it, the sweat, the early hours, the rough hands, and they saw it as dirty. They didn't see me as a daughter or a sister. They saw me as a utility. I was the machine in the basement that kept the lights on, and they were ashamed to let the guests see the generator. I rubbed my eyes trying to summon some sadness, but all I felt was a cold, sharp clarity. This wasn't a family dynamic anymore. It was a transaction. And the contract had just expired. The next morning, the bell above the bakery door jingled aggressively. It wasn't the soft, welcoming chime of a regular customer coming in for a morning bun. It was the frantic, entitled rattle of people who think they own the place. I looked up from the laminating machine, my hands deep in cool dough, to see my father Brian, my mother Tara, and Haley storming into the shop. They didn't look happy. They didn't look sorry for the way they had spoken to me the night before. They looked panicked. "Abigail, thank God you're here," my mother said, breathless, clutching her pearls like she was in a Victorian melodrama. "We have a crisis." She didn't say hello. She didn't apologize for uninviting me less than 24 hours ago because I smelled like a peasant. She just bypassed the counter and walked right into the kitchen, her heels clicking loudly on the sanitary tile. Haley was right behind her, looking immaculate in a cream-colored cashmere set. She walked straight to the large glass pastry case, but she didn't look at the tarts. She looked at herself. She adjusted her hair, checking her reflection in the glass. "The caterer canceled," Haley said to her reflection, her voice tight. "Can you believe it? He said he had a family emergency." Unprofessional. Totally unprofessional. "Anyway, we need you to fix it." I wiped my hands on a towel, staring at them. "Fix what?" I asked, my voice flat. "The desserts, obviously," Haley snapped, finally tearing her eyes away from her own face to look at me with disdain. "We need 5 dozen of your midnight cronuts, the ones with the gold leaf, and a 3-tier vanilla bean cake with the raspberry filling. We need it delivered to the venue by 4. I looked at the clock on the wall. It was 10 in the morning. They wanted a 3-day process completed in 6 hours. And judging by the way my father was avoiding eye contact while inspecting my mixer, they wanted it for free. I could see it in their posture. They weren't asking a professional, they were commanding a servant. My father stepped forward, trying to look authoritative in his weekend blazer. "Look, Abby, we know it's short notice, but this is for your sister. We need to make a good impression. Jonathan's business partners are going to be there. We need the best." I looked at Haley again. She was back to looking at herself in the glass, smoothing her cashmere. And that's when I saw it. It's a psychological distinction called the mirror versus the window. When Haley looked at people, she used them as mirrors. She only cared about what they reflected back to her. Did they make her look rich? Did they make her look beautiful? Did they enhance her image? She didn't see me standing there. She just saw a way to fix a crack in her reflection. But me, I used my craft as a window. I poured my soul into this bakery to connect with people, to feed them, to offer them something real. I looked out. She looked in. We were fundamentally different species. "I can't do it," I said. The silence in the kitchen was sudden and absolute. My mother's mouth dropped open. "What do you mean you can't? You have flour right there." "Just make them." "I can't make them," I repeated, my voice steady. "The dough for the cronuts takes 48 hours to rest. The cake layers need to cool. It's physically impossible." "You're just being selfish," Haley hissed, her face twisting into something ugly. "You're punishing me because Mom uninvited you. God, you're so petty. It's my engagement, Abigail. You're going to ruin everything just because your feelings are hurt." "I'm not being petty," I said. "I'm being a baker. Physics doesn't care about your engagement party." My father slammed his hand on the stainless steel prep table, making a bowl of setting ganache jump. "Enough. You will figure this out. I don't care if you have to buy them from somewhere else and repackage them. You are going to fix this. Or, so help me God, Abigail, I will." The bell above the door chimed again. But this time it wasn't frantic. It was confident, heavy. The kind of entrance that changes the air pressure in a room. My family froze. They turned toward the front of the shop, composing themselves, instantly putting their masks back on. Standing in the doorway was a man in a charcoal suit. That cost more than my delivery van. He was tall, with salt and pepper hair and eyes that scanned the room with the precision of a hawk. It was Jonathan, the billionaire hotel mogul, Haley's fiancé. Haley let out a high-pitched squeal and rushed toward him, her hands fluttering. "Jonathan, what are you doing here? You're not supposed to see me before the party." She went to throw her arms around his neck, aiming for a picture-perfect embrace for whoever might be watching. But Jonathan didn't stop. He didn't hug her back. He didn't even look at her. He sidestepped her outstretched arms with a smooth, fluid motion, walking right past my parents, right past the display case, and straight up to the counter where I stood. He looked at me. He didn't look at the flour on my apron. He didn't look at the sweat on my forehead. He looked me right in the eyes with a reverence I had never seen from my own father. "Are you Abigail?" he asked, his voice deep and serious. I nodded, too stunned to speak. He exhaled a long sound of genuine relief. "I have been trying to meet you for 6 months. I'm Jonathan. I own the Atlas Hotel Group. We exclusively contract with your bakery for our VIP suites. Your brioche is the only reason our Paris location has a 5-star breakfast rating." My mother made a choking sound. My father looked like he had been struck by lightning. Haley stood in the middle of the shop, her arms still half raised, staring at the back of her fiancé's head. You know her?" Haley asked, her voice trembling. Jonathan turned slowly, as if he had forgotten she was even in the room. "Know her, Haley. This woman is a genius. I told you I only agreed to meet your family because I saw the last name and hoped you were related to the owner of the Gilded Crumb." The air left the room. It was a vacuum of shock. Jonathan turned back to me, his expression shifting from professional admiration to confusion. "I sent you 5 emails, Abigail. My team sent contracts. We wanted to partner with you to open a flagship location in our new Tokyo hotel. Why did you never respond? We thought you weren't interested." I frowned, wiping my hands on my towel again. "I never got any emails," I said. "I check my inbox every night. I would never ignore an offer like that." Jonathan pulled out his phone, tapping the screen a few times before turning it around to show me. The email chain was there. But the reply address wasn't mine. It was a forwarded address. One I recognized immediately. It was my father's personal email. I looked up at Brian. He was pale, a sheen of sweat breaking out on his upper lip. Jonathan followed my gaze, his eyes narrowing as he put the pieces together. He intercepted them, I said, my voice cold. Dad, you have access to the server from when you helped me set up the domain. My father stammered, backing up against the heavy industrial mixer. I was protecting you, Abby. You're not ready for that kind of pressure. Tokyo, it's too far. We need you here. Who would run errands for your mother? Who would help Haley? I was just trying to keep the family together. Jonathan let out a short, humorless laugh. You blocked a multi-million-dollar partnership because you wanted her available to run errands. Haley stepped forward, trying to salvage the situation, grabbing Jonathan's arm with a desperate grip. Babe, it doesn't matter. It was a misunderstanding. Look, we're here now. Abigail can just bake the pastries for tonight, and we can talk business later, okay? Family first. Jonathan looked at her hand on his arm like it was a foreign object. He looked at my parents shrinking in the corner like scolded children. Then he looked at me. I don't think there are going to be any pastries, he said. Actually, I said, cutting in. There is something you should know about the pastries. My mother looked hopeful for a second, clutching her designer bag. You have some in the back, she asked, desperate. You saved some. No, I said. I don't. See, the midnight cronuts sell out 3 months in advance. There is a waiting list. And the batch I made this morning, the ones you wanted? Where are they? Haley demanded. I already donated them. Donated them? Haley shrieked. To who? To the women's shelter on 4th Street, I said. I drop them off every Friday at 9 a.m. The cupboard is bare, Haley. There is nothing here for you. Not a crumb. Haley's face crumpled. The mask of the polished, perfect influencer finally slipped, revealing the spoiled, terrified child underneath. She screamed. It wasn't a word. It was a raw sound of frustration, like a toddler denied a toy, but sharper. You are jealous, she yelled, her face turning an ugly mottled red. You have always been jealous of me. You're just a baker, Abigail. You play with flour while I actually build a brand. You are sabotaging my happiness because you can't stand that I'm the one winning. You're ugly and you're bitter. And you're ruining my life. She was panting, her chest heaving. My parents rushed to comfort her, cooing and patting her back, shooting me looks of pure hatred. My mother whispered something about me being cruel, and my father stepped forward, looking like he was ready to physically force me to start baking. I looked at Jonathan. He was standing very still, watching Haley. His face was unreadable, like a statue carved from granite. He looked at the woman he was supposed to marry, seeing the ugliness spilling out of her, the entitlement, the cruelty, the absolute lack of grace. Then he looked at me, standing calmly in my flour-dusted apron. I didn't say anything. This is a technique called the power of the non-reaction. When someone is self-destructing, you don't interrupt them. You don't fight back. You don't defend yourself. You let the silence amplify their chaos. If you scream back, you give them fuel. If you stay silent, you become a mirror. I let the room ring with her insults. I let the quiet stretch out until it was heavy, suffocating, unbearable. I let them sit in the noise they had created. Then I moved. I reached behind my neck and untied my apron. The fabric made a soft, rustling sound as I pulled it off over my head. I didn't throw it. I laid it on the stainless steel counter and folded it. Corner to corner, edge to edge, perfectly square, the discipline of the kitchen. I reached into my pocket and pulled out a single silver key. The spare key to the back door. The one my father had used to let himself in this morning. The one he used to invade my sanctuary whenever he needed something. I placed the key on top of the folded apron. Click. Then I took out my phone. I opened my contacts. I found Mom. I hit block. I found Dad. Block. I found Haley. Block. I did it slowly, deliberately, holding the screen at an angle so they could see exactly what I was doing. Abigail, what are you doing? My mother whispered, the color finally draining from her face as the reality of the moment hit her. You can't just... I'm clocking out, I said. My voice was quiet, but it cut through the room like a serrated knife. I turned to my sous chef Marcus, who had been watching wide-eyed from the prep station, a tray of cooling scones in his hands. Marcus, you're in charge, I said. Close up early today. Lock everything. Everyone gets paid for the full shift. Yes, Chef Marcus said, straightening up. I walked around the counter. I walked past my father, who wouldn't meet my eyes, his bluster completely gone now that his leverage had evaporated. I walked past my mother, who was trembling, realizing she had just lost her ATM and her punching bag in the span of 5 minutes. I walked past Haley, who was sobbing into her hands, her engagement party ruined not by me but by the truth. I stopped in front of Jonathan. "I'm going to get a coffee," I said. "You're welcome to join me." Jonathan didn't hesitate. He didn't look at Haley. He didn't say goodbye to the parents he had been trying to impress. He turned his back on them, on the fiancé, on the aesthetic, on the entire toxic circus. "After you," he said. We walked out the front door into the snowy Boston street. The bells chimed above us one last time. Behind us, the bakery smelled like burnt sugar and regret. But out here, the air was cold and clean. I took a deep breath, the icy air filling my lungs, and for the first time in 5 years, I didn't feel the weight of them on my shoulders. I felt light. The fallout was spectacular, but quiet. There were no police, no screaming matches in the street. Just the devastating weight of consequences finally arriving. Jonathan broke off the engagement that night via text message. He didn't do it cruelly. He did it decisively. He cited a fundamental incompatibility of values, which is corporate speak for, "I realized you and your family are monsters." Haley tried to spin the story on social media. She posted a tearful video about how she was blindsided and how her jealous sister ruined her big day. But without Jonathan's money and connections, her content dried up. The engagement party venue sued her for the cancellation fees. The aesthetic she had cultivated crumbled because it was built on a foundation I had been paying for. Her followers realized her lifestyle was a facade, and they moved on to the next shiny thing. My parents were left with a leased brownstone they couldn't afford and a pile of debts they couldn't pay. Without my monthly transfers, my invisible wallet, the heat was turned off in February. They had to downsize to a condo in the suburbs, miles away from the old Boston image they coveted. They tried to reach out to me through cousins and aunts, sending messages about family unity and forgiveness. I never replied. I didn't need to. I had already said everything I needed to say when I put that key on the counter. 1 year later, I stood in front of a massive glass storefront in Tokyo. The sign above the door read, "The Gilded Crumb," in elegant gold lettering. It was the flagship location Jonathan and I had opened together. Jonathan stood next to me, holding the ribbon-cutting scissors. We weren't a couple. We were partners. He respected my craft, and I respected his vision. He looked at me and smiled, not with pity, but with the same reverence he had shown that day in the bakery. I looked around at the crowd. My staff handpicked and paid double the industry standard. The regulars who had flown in for the opening. The women from the shelter who I now sponsored with a percentage of our global profits. This was my family. This was the table I had built. I picked up a fresh croissant from the tray. It was warm, flaky, perfect. I took a bite, and it tasted like freedom. If you are the one keeping the lights on for people who would leave you in the dark, listen to me. They will never hand you the switch. You have to turn it off yourself. It will be dark for a moment, yes, but then you will finally see the stars.